All right, let's try that again. Perfect. I've got confirmation from my guests that the sound is there. Just apologies for those gremlins in the system. It does happen. This is live TV. We are building it as we fly it. Good people, welcome to it. Mona Sanbonani, hello, how's it? And shalom, Renand. Welcome now. Welcome to Liberty and Friends here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Goodness me, has it not been a crazy week? And again, you don't have to be told by me how crazy it is. Some of you who are residents of Gauteng and the KZN, specifically in Durban, will have been, or rather will have had a front row seat to that absolute mayhem and chaos. To help us unpack all of that tonight, Liberty and Friends, remember, is your every Sunday evening, 8 p.m. news ending show, or rather a show that looks at the news week that was. We provide analysis, opinion, and insights into some of the major headlines that maybe got you talking, interested, laughing this entire week. So welcome to it. Grab a drink, and we're going to have that chat tonight. Before I do that, a reminder, please, that as you join the stream, please smash that like button. Trust you me, it definitely helps get the show out to a much broader audience. So please hit that like button right now. Do it. If you care about starving kids in Africa, as I like to joke, you will hit that like button. And let's keep that engagement, please, over 50% as I see the numbers trickling in. Maybe you are watching the rather silly president speak right now as the head of the ANC for Mandela Day. Please don't waste your time. Come straight here and hit that like button. Now, tonight on Liberty and Friends, I have a new face, and you know how it is. I love new faces on the show. But before I get into any of that, let me bring on some of the more, should I call it old school? Y'all are firm favorites to the audience. I'll begin, of course, with a 1/3 of the trio out at the Manpatria podcast, a attorney by profession, practicing attorney at that by profession. I'm talking, of course, about Nzuzo Khati. Nzuzo, good evening, and welcome to Liberty and Friends. I just got you on mute there, Nzuzo. There we go.
Oh no, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Great.
we can hear you now.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, CK, as well. Great to be on the show. I don't want to call myself an old timer, but yeah, I am a regular. but nonetheless, thank you.
Yeah, I was good to have you on the show nonetheless, brother. Very good to have you on. Another firm favorite on the show, perhaps more bearded than me, believe it or not. I'm talking, of course, about Gabriel Crouse from the Institute of Race Relations. He's the head of campaigns out there. And you've probably seen some of his more interesting billboards. Gabriel, good evening.
He's
Gabriel,
also
I have you on mute.
How's it, Sihle?
There we go.
It's very good to be with you guys. I also just watched the president speak, and it's nice to switch from that to this platform, which I think is going to be similarly concerned about the major nightmare that this country's faced in the last week, but a little bit more prepared, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Lot
there
more.
you go.
A lot more. Let me not understate it.
A key difference there.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's Gabriel Crouse from the Institute of Race Relations, of course. Another chap who you've seen on the show, the founder and head of firearms.co.za. I really encourage you to head on over to that part of the world. I'm talking, of course, about Ian Cameron. Ian, good evening and welcome to Liberty and Friends.
Basically, hi guys. Thank you very much. Looking forward to having a chat.
Excellento. And last but not least, and the new face I spoke about, and of course on this show we do the new face jab. And I'm talking, of course, about the head of the Afriforum Civil Rights Organization, the CEO, actually, of Afriforum, Kallie, Kriel. Kallie, good evening and welcome to the show.
Hello, Cecily. I've been waiting many years to speak to you, but at last I received the invitation, and it's great. It's great to be on the show.
Absolutely. Very, very good to have you. Kallie, just a quick note. If you can, during the course of the show, maybe try and get a light in front of you. You're a little bit dark, but we can see you and we can hear you in the interim. And perhaps let's get into it, guys. And, on this show, just to remind the viewers, it's a 90-minute show. And we basically look at the news week that was, the headlines that got us talking, crying, laughing as South Africans. And before I even say anything more, guys, there's about 360 of us watching now. The number is rising, but those likes are not rising. Guys, give me my likes. Hit that like button. As you enter, smash that like button, please, and keep the engagement over 50%. I want to see 150 likes, guys. Please, please, please get that up. And hey, man, don't shirk me on my likes. Get my likes up. Gabriel, I want to begin with you because top of mind, I would argue, for any South African has been the looting, the wanton destruction of public property, public and private, property, and of course, I'm lost for words even just to try and get it out. But the scary scenes that many South Africans found themselves plunged in over the course of this past week. Your initial assessments and some of the thoughts you've maybe pushed out via the Daily Friend?
Yeah, I think the fact that we struggle for words is telling, and the mainstream professional social media struggled for words too. How do you describe what we've just happened? What's the headline of it? It's even hard to say. I sometimes call it the third wave riot because I think that a major part of the explaining background to what we're seeing is the desperation and frustration grounded in economic hardship and political madness that has put South Africa in the third wave of lockdowns that have been, in each case, irrational, and that's come in the back of what's well known as a lost decade. But other people want to call it the Zuma riots, and I see the point behind that too. The spark to the powder keg was Jacob Zuma's arrest, the final capitulation before the rule of law, and that's a very important part of what's going on here. Some people wanted to call it, I suppose, something else. Race war. I don't think that's right. I see very little evidence of that. Ethnic mobilization, phrase that was put out and withdrawn but bandied about, and I think that there's something to say about it, but a lot of it's off key. But Cecily, I think the headline is a question mark. South Africans really want to know, is this over? Is it going to get worse? And what real changes are going to come out of this? What lessons are we actually going to learn?
No, I must agree with you. And Ian, I'm going to come to you as I just keep that joke. Mike Scott, shout out to you for a little humor this evening. But just a reminder to my admins, please, guys, keep it clean, keep it decent, and let's keep it respectful. Anybody who is trolling or disrespectful, racist, or whatever, you mute their butts, please, on the show. I don't tolerate any shenanigans. I wanted to use that word. I was fixing up to use that word. Actually, Ian, let me come to you. There's a story this week, and we'll get into the communities defending themselves because that's a whole meaty topic in and of itself. But there's a story this week in how quickly things went to crap when the state shirked its rightful responsibility to uphold the rule of law. We just saw actual chaos reign supreme.
Well, I don't think you can expect anything else when you've got a criminal network inside government itself. I think the true colors of the ANC just came out once again, and I think it's so naive. The last 24 hours, I've seen people saying, yeah, but we're not a supporter of the ANC, but we're a supporter of Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril Ramaphosa watched Zuma do what he did over the past years, and he did nothing about it. He had a good chance to start clearing out, and a lot of people praised him because of one or two steps that he took. It's not enough. Saying that government wasn't prepared enough. Government wasn't prepared at all for what happened. And I would go as far as saying as many people in government wanted it to happen, that referring to what happened in the past week. And I know we're going to talk about the community side, but I think the ANC and specifically Ramaphosa and his gang of criminals did us a huge favor, because they forced all different communities in South Africa to organize and mobilize themselves. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for people to venture into that space where they realize that they are on their own, that government does not have your back. And just to end off my opening comment, if we listen to Ramaphosa tonight, the one sentence that he used, and luckily I had to come over here to chat to you guys, because it's just mind-numbing to listen to him. But the one thing Ramaphosa said was that we need to increase the capacity of the state. And I just thought to myself, how on earth does he dare say that after they've looted all the state coffers to the point where for example, police members, the good and honest cops on the ground don't even have torches to use. And he dares say that while communities have to fend for themselves because government is totally incompetent or just plain criminal.
And Nzuzo, I must come to you. Ian offers a very nice segue on the notion of criminality and how it effectively took over this past week. The law-abiding citizen found themselves in the temporary minority, if I can put it that way, in the country, or at least perceptively, we found ourselves in the minority, even though we know the looters don't represent a majority of anything, really. But it doesn't take a majority of people to render a country ungovernable. I made this point when Nzuzo on Vlog 106, and I said the culture, the behavior, what we're seeing in the streets at the moment is the chickens, the political chickens coming home to roost of an ANC who has pushed this culture into communities that if you're unhappy about something, you not only take to the streets, but there must be wanton destruction of public and private goods. There is public violence, and of course, the looting that we've seen. And a lot of people took exceptions when I raised this particular point. And I said, actually, no. If you remember back to our struggle days, the ANC used to talk about launching a campaign of rendering things ungovernable in the country. And when they then took on government, they never changed or tried to push back or disavow that political culture, if I can put it that way. And we saw that come to a head, and the rule of law suffered.
Yeah, see, it's a great point that you make, that this is not the first time. Well, this is not something that's new to South Africans, particularly with reference to our governing party. Back in 1977, Prince Shenge Buthelezi also told the ANC at the time, when they decided to make the country ungovernable, that it's gonna affect you in the long run, because now you're actually building this culture of destruction, violence. Whenever you don't get what you want, you just cut up the roads, you just bomb cars, you just throw stones at cars just because you're not getting what you want. And we saw that clearly this week, where a number of people were just doing whatever they want. They looted, they entered into stores, and they took whatever they wanted. I mean, there was during his speech on Monday, while he was actually talking, you'll see in the corner of the screen, people were continuously looting. His voice doesn't even matter anymore. That's just how bad the culture of violence and criminality is in South Africa that the ANC itself has created. And I'm not surprised that even when he was talking, people were doing that, because at the same time, they don't respect him. People are living in grinding poverty. I know people that haven't worked for 5 to 10 years, and they don't see the government doing anything for them, even though they're not even supposed to be doing something, but yet they still believe that the government is going to do something for them. When you have people with that type of mentality, what do you expect but carnage, violence, and people, essentially a baby screaming at their parents of not giving them the chocolate that they want. It's just a case of a culture that's really, really resulting in the destruction of South Africa this week. And there's the mistrust between government and its citizens, at least those who are not criminals, has even grown this past week. That at the time where we needed you the most, and particularly with reference to the police, you were nowhere to be seen. There were videos of policemen literally in front of the store, yet people are coming in and out, taking whatever they want, and they're just saying, stop. And I'm like, wow, what's the point of even being there?
That's right. I mean, again, Kallie, I must come to you because Nzuzo makes that critical point where communities across the country, and I laugh at how the media, the mainstream media in particular, are doing their usual, which is to try and dribble and distract by saying, well, this was all driven by race, how dare those minority groups, whether Indians or whites in this country, how dare they defend themselves? Don't they know that that's racist and that's apartheid? We're being told. Yet at the same time, if you actually were watching what was happening, there were even black communities in this country, particularly in Soweto, who were doing exactly the same thing, barricading their local malls to say, no, we are community members. This is our shared space. We will defend it. What I want to put to you is there's this weird culture in this country that we see play out between the elites, the political elites who push these narratives, and perhaps ordinary South Africans who, when the chips were down, banded together and organized themselves.
Yes, definitely so, Cecily. The fact is that the politicians have special protective forces that are protecting them. We have said, well, we actually have the police that should protect us. But when we looked what happened is the police was nowhere to be seen. I saw one joke saying, the army has very great camos because one can't see them anywhere. So they camouflage so greatly. But in the end, I think communities, we should take our safety into our own hands. And of course, do that within the framework of the law. Yeah. And I think if you look at what has happened, it's a terrible thing that has happened. It's disheartening. But I think the silver lining is that what we've seen is that communities from all over the country, people from different walks of life, had said, well, we are going to protect ourselves. And we've seen that, I must say, sometimes if a taxi drives in front of me, I get very angry. But, what we've seen over the last week is that the taxi industry has said, we're not going to allow this. Santago has said they are going to protect properties. We've seen it in East London. We've seen it in Pretoria. We've seen it in Brits. And we've seen it the so-called Indian community. We've actually seen it in the black community in Soweto, where people said we're not going to allow the Manpatria mall being burnt down or being destroyed. So I think the silver lining here is that communities are coming to the fore to say, we want to play a constructive role, and we are not going to allow this fringe groups to destroy our country. And I think that is the one thing that gives me a lot of hope. The fact is, what we've seen from these people that are terrorizing us, they want to create the impression that the whole country is up in arms. Yeah. But if you look at in terms of our centers that are monitoring the situation, the problem is only, if you look at the country, it's only a few spots. If you look at it in terms of the N3 highway, there's a lot of problems. You look at certain spots in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. So it's a minority group. Of course, we're not saying it's not serious, but we should not say the country is burning. The country is not burning. Certain areas of the country has huge problems. But I think what we are seeing, it's a minority of the people that are doing this. And the vast majority of people in the country wants peace, and they want to protect property. And the guys that have done this have failed.
Absolutely. Ian, I must come to you because now I feel ready to broach this topic, and it's critically important. Two things that I take away from this weekend. I want to get your thoughts on this. Number one, in a rather spectacular fashion, South Africa's law-abiding citizens simply rejected the socialist and communist notions that we've been sold by the political elites of private property doesn't matter, and that you shouldn't protect private property, where those residents actually said, no, not only are we going to protect private property and, of course, our public shared spaces as residents, we will use the second thing that is often maligned by politicians, rifles, damn it, and guns, to protect our spaces, to protect, as I put it the whole week, life, liberty, and property rights. That is an important message to send to politicians, Ian, is it not?
Absolutely. I think, as I said earlier, they did us a big favor by allowing some of this to happen, because first of all, I think it's crucial to say that government must never in any way have the monopoly on your safety. So that's the first thing. The state should never have the sole responsibility of keeping you safe. I would even go as far as saying that if they do fail, it shouldn't be a cause of life, a case of life and death for you, because you should have the correct remedies in your private life to be able to look after yourself. So before we talk about community involvement, that's the first thing. People need to understand, especially in South Africa. First of all, government is not competent to look after you. Second of all, I mean, just in the last week, they lost more than 1.5 million rounds of ammo. I'm not even talking about all the other cases, and we can chat about that too. But,
yes.
but let's maybe use that as a case study for this discussion. So they went to that container. They counted 1.5 million rounds of ammunition. It was meant to be under police guard, and just a few hours later, it was looted. Then Bekitele has the audacity, absolute arrogance, to come on to live television and say that they've had a major breakthrough and that they've intercepted this ammunition that was stolen. And does he think we're stupid? Does he think we are intellectually flawed that he can lie to people in South Africa that way? Because that same ammunition is most likely, well, not most likely, it is going to be used to commit criminal offenses, and it just emphasizes the absolute incompetence of not only government but leadership in crucial positions like policing. So that being said, we know how bad our law enforcement services are in South Africa. That being said, it just emphasizes why good law-abiding citizens that are armed, organized, and mobilized have such a high impact. So I want to use Soweto as an example. So, you know, we often, and this is once again something that the ANC is now doing. They're trying to make this a racial thing and trying to make it sound like it's only whites and Indians that are barricading things and patrolling. It's a load of nonsense. In fact, my experience in Pretoria Central just a few years ago was that taxi associations would go and look for criminals that have been haunting a specific community for a long time, where the police failed. And then they end up arresting police officials with the criminals because the police officials were working with the criminals. And so the list goes on. I want to emphasize how Soweto did it. They set an example for the rest of the country. We saw it in parts of Durban as well, KZN and so on. And I think it's a great step forward. We must not now listen to ridiculous excuses from government. And the comment by Cyril earlier tonight saying that they need more capacity is not true. We can't allow it. We need to make sure that more communities are organized, more communities are mobilized, and that they know how to do it within the framework of the law. I think the perception is created that people aren't allowed to mobilize themselves within the framework of the law, but they can, and there's more than enough reason to do so, more than enough space to do that. So we need to encourage that. We need to train people, and we need to show people how they can mobilize in order to safeguard themselves and their communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Gabriel, I must come to you because Ian touches so many important points here. In fact, on that particular point, there's three distinct things I wanted to chew on. And then Nzuzo, I'll come to you, and then Kallie. When you look at the failure, people didn't wait, guys. People didn't wait. That's the thing that made me so proud to see. People didn't wait to be told or to be given permission by the state. People were quick to realize, hey, listen, people, the world is falling apart around us. If we don't stand and effectively control our own spaces, not only will we be lost, but this will be an imminent threat to not only ourselves as people, but to our families. There was an impetus behind it driven by the love of family. And I always talk about it on the show, that South Africans are a faith, flag, family, and freedom society. So that's the first thing I saw. It's that idea that people didn't wait to ask for permission. Number two, the bit that really interested me in particular is that and I wanted to spell this notion of vigilante behavior. In nearly all cases, people were in communication with their local police station commander to say, hey, listen, it's not that we're asking for permission, but this is what we're doing. Support this or tough titty. You'll have to fight a battle, so to speak, on two fronts, one with the looters and the other with us. The second point. And lastly, I must bring it to you, the notion that people recognize the importance of private property, whether it is owned by some white monopoly capital mall establishment. People went out and defended that. Black South Africans went out to defend that. And it put the party like the EFF and the ANC and the RET faction of the ANC on the back foot because they just simply couldn't explain that.
Yeah, my colleague Nicholas Lorimer, who's been on the BDL as well, said to me today, what a wonderful silver lining, the grand vindication of polling, in particular that polling that's been done by the Institute of Race Relations or commissioned by them to get private companies, independent people to go and ask thousands of random strangers. Because we keep putting this information out there. Most South Africans are not RET. Most South Africans are center to seriously conservative, very much care about exactly the values you talked about: property rights, family, integrity, and basic decent humanity, actually, a lot of goodwill. And we get pushback. No, South Africa's a screwed up society. Apartheid was so terrible, you can't expect anything else. Most South Africans really believe in socialism, statism, race nationalism, everywhere racism, whatever the sort of label is. And what we've seen has been a grand debunking, a fact check at a practical and national level of the BS. And I'm delighted too to see that. And I think that the gun rights movement is in a strong position. I think the government's tabled legislation to remove self-defense as a reason to own or use a gun is disintegrated into the smoke and ashes of hundreds of malls and hundreds of thousands of jobs and 1% of GDP on the best estimate that I could get my hands on this morning. But I think that in terms of the broader, when you say in the third part of that question, property rights, I want to say a brief anecdote to bring out, I think, a terrible tension in South Africa today and in South Africa in general. And it's the tension between a kind of practical wisdom and a kind of conversational wisdom. My family is down in Durban North, involved in a church one of their churches is right there. One of the churches they work in is right there by Phoenix. And they've been handing out food. They've been manning patrols to watch traffic coming in and out. They've been speaking the good words of non-racialism and common will and respect for property rights and private rights. And I am very proud of that. And they've sent me some worrying messages that I shared with you, Sihle, about what they worry about for the week to come, but also what they're very happy about with what's happened. Now, that's the practical wisdom. And that's the thing that we're seeing nationwide, this practical wisdom. Get up. Don't wait for permission. Get up and man the sort of entry points and pinch points to your community. Get up and protect Manpatria Mall or places down in Durban. Go and do it. But what about the conversational wisdom? What about the degree to which I don't hear property rights being the name of the thing being defended by people proposing that on the mainstream media, on the news channels that I've been graced to be on, but where I watch the interviews before and after, and they say, no, the problem is capitalism. Capitalism is crime. Criminality is something born out of this fact that people are jealous of one another and the fact that we've got this legacy of hiring too much on merit and not enough national democratic revolution. I'm hearing a lot of that. And I worry that the grand lessons that South Africans have learned are going to be hijacked by people who lack practical wisdom, but have a lot of charisma. And that's what I saw a lot of in the president's speech. I saw a lot of charisma. And it's something I'm seeing up and down the line. A lot of charisma to pull us away from the real changes that we need to make to stop this from happening again, to stop this from being such a reliable thing to happen on a daily flippant basis. 10 violent protests per day pre-pandemic, according to SAPS. It's amazing that that was normal. And right now, it's something that we all care about. Right now, it's something that has got the attention. Are we going to learn the lesson? That what needs to change is two things. The rules need to change. The rules of South Africa assume that most people are racist. The only way you can explain BEE is on the assumption that most people are racist. And in the absence of quotas, we're not going to get along. The rules of this country are being pushed to saying the government can come and take your stuff without compensating you, or even take custodianship of your stuff for the good of our people without even having to go to the courts if you do it that way. Those are the rules being pushed. The rules being pushed are saying you can't have a gun to defend yourself, whatever color you are. The rules are part of the problem. And I hope that South Africans take the lesson that the rules we have and the rules that are being proposed need to change. It's not enough to send one guy to jail. It's not enough to send some instigators to jail. It's definitely not going to happen that we're going to send all the looters to jail, although that would be good. But even that wouldn't be enough. We have to change the rules in a way that accords with what our polling, for example, has shown for years, and what this demonstration, this fact check by South Africans to the BS race nationalists and socialists, this fact check has shown the rules need to change because that is what most people want. It's the right thing to do. It's the popular thing to do. And I think that it's going to be a hard thing to pressure for because the president and his party and his alliance have no current interest in that. So we as citizens need to put that pressure so that we learn the lesson towards the end of the year when you can make it count. So we can learn the lesson in 2024 when you can make it count, but also so that we can learn the lesson in between. I am graced. Sorry, Sihle, I know I'm talking a lot, but it's wonderful to be here with Kallie Kriel because Afriforum is an organization that teaches the lesson on a daily basis. That democracy happens on the daily basis. It's not just when you go and vote. Being part of this structure under law means that you can participate as a citizen every day in many which ways. Part of them are very practical, and that's great. And part of them are intellectual, and that's great too. And we all, I think, can be enthused and inspired by this moment to do a little bit more, because otherwise the low-level kind of looting, pillaging, and murdering of South Africans in this country, it's going to keep on. It's going to keep on keeping on. More same, unless we change the rules of the game.
Absolutely. And Nzuzo, I must come to you because there's a critical point here about the rule of law. And Kallie, I'll come to you shortly because there's a line share of the Tonight Show that I want you to deal with in a moment. But Nzuzo, almost as if to prove the fact-checking that Gabriel talks about, the real-world fact-checking that Gabriel speaks about, was how people quickly realized when the malls were literally up in flames, when the distribution centers were up in flames, where the streets were strewn with loot you could barely even drive through in parts of Durban, how, pardon me, what compounded that image, what made it worse, was seeing even some isolated cases of the police officers themselves partaking in the looting. Going beyond what Ian described earlier of them just, sitting back and watching helplessly, as is the case in some cases where they're just outmanned, outgunned, and the like. But even police officers, there are videos I played where, a quick little, sorry, I thought of the sentence in Zulu, shutela something, to stuff something into your pocket, even amongst the chaos and the mayhem. And I must say, it made me think of the numerous other examples, not connected to the looting, of course, and this current issue, where the police have been found in a compromised position where they're involved in the very crimes that they're meant to deal with. Let me be precise and specific. Right now, on this show, we did a feature on a young Brendan Horner, who was savagely murdered on the farm that he worked on. And now it's come out that 5 or 6 police officers themselves have been arrested for the murder. Can you imagine the disappointment one will feel, compounded then with what we saw with the looting, where we're seeing that cops themselves are involved in this. This just doesn't bode well for the notion of the rule of law. Nzuzo, you're muted. I'm just going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Yes, just saying, yes, it actually gives credence to, well, the saying that the best thing that you can get from the police service in South Africa is commission of oaths. You're just going there to get your affidavit stamped, and that's it. Because other than that, you're not going to get someone who's going to react in time. You're not going to get someone who's going to be helpful. Particularly, we've seen many videos where people go to the police station asking for assistance and then get abused right in front of every other police officer. And this is not really shocking when you hear that the stats, more than 4,000 police officers have criminal records of their own. Many have been accused and alleged to be assaulted, people in jail. Others have been accused of raping women. And I'm not surprised when you see videos of police officers putting stuff into their own pockets and trying to get away with some of the loot. It just speaks to a police service that's demotivated, has lack of resources, lack of training, and just lack of any inspiration. And I'm not, and when you hear people like Kriel speak, it's just like, bruh, even a 10-year-old kid can do a better job than you, because you're never there. You don't understand the dynamics of a police service and how it works with the community, how important it is that the community must have connection to the police officers on the ground, and how important it is that these police officers should most of the time come from the communities which they service. But at the same time, it's run over by corruption, massive corruption. We have previous commissioners in the police service being accused of being involved in corruption, tender corruption, being involved. I mean, we heard about the fact that evidence-based systems are not working because police don't have money, and they've also been involved in various corruption. Yeah, it just speaks to, and like Gabriel said, in as much as we have a bad police service, we have communities that understand the threat that is the crime that in South Africa. Communities know that after 6 o'clock in the CBD, you better get out of the CBD or else it's over for you. In Johannesburg CBD, I can't walk, I can't go to the shops. Shops can't be open past 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in winter. And imagine, as someone who went to Wits himself, sometimes I'd actually be afraid to even cross the Mandela Bridge. It's just that scary, and these are the stories that you hear in everyday South Africa. So I'm not necessarily, so seeing police officers actually put in the loot, take some of the loot that was this week, I'm not surprised. And it just shows that much more that has, and also it also shows another thing is that, when Cyril talks about the fact that they must increase the capacity of the state, it's like you don't even understand what the state is supposed to do. You're not doing the very basic function of a state, which is ensure safety. Yes, of course, you as a citizen must also take the precautions necessary to protect yourself. But that's the duty of the state, to enforce the law, to protect citizens, and to serve. But in South Africa, that's totally a different point, and it's foreign to the government of South Africa. They don't understand it, and that's why you have Kriel having multiple security guards and goons around him wherever he walks. You saw Ramaphosa in KZN speaking, and he has like 30 goons around him, and people can't even get close to him. It's like you see the detachment that these politicians have from the reality and society. They don't know what we're going through. And Cyril's a billionaire, so obviously he doesn't know what we're going through. But nonetheless, you're the president.
And what I found even laughable, and I'll come to Kallie in a moment, but just as a final point, what I found laughable, here's the president, just to hop on your point, and you're damn right. He then comes out days later, well, I was on the ground, and I engaged with citizens. Nonsense, man. He was surrounded by at least 30 to 60 phalanx, a true mini army of bodyguards, or excuse me, they're called close protection, and the like. And, you know, he didn't speak to anybody. He just walked shop to shop, watched, saw the devastation, gave a quick quip to the media, and bounced. Contrast that to someone like John Steenhuisen. And again, on this show, I'm non-partisan. I don't shill for any political party, but credit must be given where credit is due. John Steenhuisen was on the ground. Dean McPherson, member of parliament for the DA in Durban, on the ground. They did, like, not only did they go to hotspots, they reached out, they showed empathy with the people whose businesses had been looted, whose areas had been devastated. IFP, same thing. Organizing and mobilizing and uniting people in their communities to, on the one hand, defend their spaces, but also to push out a messaging of, guys, what's happening is complete anarchy, it's complete unacceptable. Where was the, and again, this is what I want to put to you before I come to
And where was the EFF as well?
There you go. There you go. And that's what I was going to. Where was the EFF? If anything, their leader, Julius Malema, was put on ice by Twitter for 12 hours. Hey, Paula, put your finger here. Twitter said, put your finger here for 12 hours. Because even in this moment, he chose to incite violence, even at that moment, Nzuzo.
Yeah, I'm glad that, you know, I didn't see Malema on the streets. I mean, he would have obviously just said the same thing that he always says. It's white people, it's white minority capital, the government is this, the government is that. And this is a culture that he also promotes, this violence. Whenever you don't get what you want, you protest. But obviously, you know, someone like Malema is not necessarily interested in the betterment of South Africa. I think he's more interested in himself. And it showed to this week. And the flip-flopping, it's just weird. It's like, it's a, I don't know, maybe they're on a different planet, but you can't just say, firstly, Zuma must go to jail. And then the following week, you're like, no, Zuma must be released. I'm like, what do you expect? Do people actually have any? It just doesn't make sense. It's just like, dude, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this for really votes, or are you just trying to get as close to government as possible so that you don't get hurt financially? Maybe that's why he wears the Gucci suits anyway. But nonetheless, you know, I think that, you know, the government, Cyril is detached from reality, and it was perfectly put by R.W. Johnson in his article, where he stated that all you've seen in the African history of all these dictators, these heads of states talking about Marxism, socialism, I'm for the people, we are for the people, we'll be the same, and we're going to ensure that our people are taken care of. But actually, when it comes to the practicality, when it comes to actually implementing it, they're nowhere to be seen. And yet they just live in their luxury homes, comfortable. I mean, this guy has homes everywhere, so Ramaphosa. And you understand as to why he was able to go to KZN with 30 to 60 goons and just stand around and say, Amandla. It's like, it's weird because I'm saying, who are we saying Amandla to? Are we saying Amandla to the government? Because if that's the case, you shouldn't be there. Because my mouth is gonna be coming to a gun to your face. If you want me to really protest and be pissed at the government, you're the first guy I should talk to. You're the guy that should be responding, not John Steenhuisen, not Prince Shanga Buthelezi, not Woodin and Herman Ashaba in Joburg. You are the head of the state. You should be the one taking the responsibility. We don't see that. We don't see that. See a man that's just feeble, that's ignorant of the realities on the ground, and that just tries to virtue signal every single time to make his supporters happy. I mean, I think that the reason why I was actually in KZN was for purposes of making sure that he's able to consolidate power in KZN, because obviously the ANC in KZN is not fond of him. They want him out due to the fact that they've now arrested Zuma. And now that the whole point of him being there is just for him to say, guys, I'm here. You know, I'm the big man. You guys should respect me. I'm gonna consolidate power, and I'm the next leader. I'm gonna continue being the leader of the ANC. And it's not for the purposes of trying to ensure that communities are safe, businesses are up and running. What can he do and offer to businesses where's the 500 billion? Maybe you can give us maybe a young 2 billion so you can, help us in rebuilding this community. But there's nowhere to be seen, and I'm not surprised.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us, welcome to it. This is Liberty and Friends, your Sunday evening news week wrapping up show. I should find a better way to say that expression. But I'm in conversation with Nzuzo Khati, practicing attorney, of course, and 1/3 of the Manpatria podcast. Please check them out. That's Dumo, Koketso, and Nzuzo over at Manpatria. Gabriel Crouse, of course, who is from the Institute of Race Relations. He's the head of campaigns in that part of the world. You'll find his writing, a lot of his thoughts also on the Daily Friend. Remember, Daily Friend being dailyfriend.co.za, your daily news site. Ian Cameron, the founder and head honcho out at firearms.co.za. Make sure you check that out. And of course, last but not least, and who I'm going to come to right now, Kallie Kriel, who is the CEO out at Afriforum. Kallie, let me come to you because there's a conversation to be had here, and the fellas have laid it out quite nicely indeed. Insofar as, we found ourselves in a situation as residents where all of that, and I want to phrase this in how our detractors phrase it. Over the years, we've been telling South Africans that, listen, you are on your own here. And if you're going to depend on this gaggle of politicians in the political elite, you'll find yourself and your family being in trouble and in danger real quickly. And that message was, we used to push it in warning South Africans that these moments can happen. And what's important, therefore, is not to fret about it, not to live in fear, but to unite. As I said on the Big Daddy Liberty show on Wednesday, 3 things that must happen. South Africans must unite, especially at a community level. They must organize, because it's only once you've united a community with a unity of purpose, only then are you able to organize them, find out what is your, what's available in your community, who has certain skills, who's a registered firearms owner, for example. And of course, lastly, to then mobilize a response, a way of defending your community, your culture, your very values, and the families, of course, in your community. We saw that in action this week, but your organization has been doing this for a very long time, Kallie. Tell me what your response was as Afriforum on the street.
Yes, Sishle, I think what's very important, as Winston Churchill said, is we should not confuse published opinion with public opinion. And when we listen to what Gabriel said with regard to the research that the IRR does, there's a vast difference with regard to what we are seeing in the media, the published opinion, and what really is the public opinion. The politicians would want us to know that the government has to take control. We need to see this leftist control where everything is centralized. But I think that what we've seen now is that the centralized government is not able to take control of the situation. And that's where what you've mentioned, Sishle, is that the community now has to say, well, within the framework of the law, let us take control of the situation. And that is not a problem. I think this leftist approach to say government needs to solve all the problems, it's something that we've now seen that has failed. And the fortunate thing is that we are seeing a lot of resources, energy, the will to make a difference within communities, and that is a positive force that we can utilize. So I'm glad that Ian is also on the program this evening, because he's played a huge role to start to mobilize communities. And we're now in a situation where Afriforum has 160 neighborhood watches with 12,500 volunteers that are taking part in that. We've got a national radio network. We've got a joint operations center that monitors the situation. We even have drones. We have 61 drone pilots at the moment. And what we are seeing in communities where we've started with these neighborhood watches is that the crime definitely goes down. And the nice thing is, if you look at the man with the hat, Becky Cele, you get a very negative opinion of the police. And of course, there's a lot of good reasons why people are negative. But we need to know that on grassroots level, there's a lot of policemen and women that definitely wants to make a difference. And what we are seeing in the majority of communities where we are active, there's a good relationship with the police, and we are able to cooperate with them. And you see many of the areas where the police go on a mission, and they ask us to participate and assist with regard to roadblocks, using our drones to get information, and that is the way to go. If you're simply going to look at the politicians and the centralized government, you will give up hope and say, well, life as we know it has ended. But if you take a mind shift to say, you know what, our future is not in the hands of government, our future is in our own hands, if we on a grassroots level cooperate, and then I think there's a bright future. And we've seen that. That is why this has failed. These efforts to stir up emotions, to start looting, the reason why it was not able to grow momentum and to have a snowball effect, because normal people on grassroots level said, no, we are going to oppose this. And that is where we need to focus, to say, the solution is not with government. The solution is within our communities, that we need to mobilize, we need to organize, but we need to stay calm. If you're not calm and you go into fear, then it neutralizes your efforts. And there's no reason to go into fear, because within communities, we have the resources, we have the energy, we have people that want to make a difference. And in the end, good will prevail.
Absolutely. And Kallie, I'm going to stick with you for a moment, because, there's something to be said here. There's something to be said here about, the importance of civil organizations organizing local residents, because there were literally communities in this country where there was absolutely no police presence, but the cops themselves were asking for those organizations, whether it's private security or just armed residents, to assist. I think there was a video I shared of the local station commander in Springs. Shout out to him. There was an engagement between him and the local CPF, the local community members, who had obviously worked together around this. And the station commander was speaking in glowing terms to these people, saying, guys, thank you so much, because when the chips were down, I could allocate resources elsewhere, knowing that you guys were an additional force assisting us. The community of Margate in Cape Town, there was a clip that went viral across the world. It was even featured on the Tucker Carlson show, of residents there, and you could see that the SAPs had abandoned them, but they were holding the line, professional also in their approach, calm, as you said, Kallie, in their approach, and they defended the mall. I think it was a mall behind them against what was protesters and the like. Talk to me, Kallie, about the importance, because again, you have the sort of insight which I think is important. Talk to me about the sort of efforts that Afriforum is going to, are you going to ramp up this sort of community organizing? What's the plan?
Yes, most definitely. We have 160 neighborhood watches, but we need more. Fortunately, we started a few years ago to put in our resources into building community structures. We need to strengthen that further, but we are happy about the fact that at least we've gone a long way. What we further need to do is we've actually formed a strong training department where we need to make sure that people are trained. The last thing that we need is we don't need people going onto the streets that act like cowboys and act outside of the framework of the law, because that will only worsen the situation. What I'm quite proud of is that we actually we're very glad about the fact that you very rarely get incidents, or actually we don't have those incidents where people just go on the streets to act in a vigilante way. So we have various phases of training programs. The basic program, 16 modules where we train people. Then, of course, you go to a second level where you train people in different spheres to protect the communities. But if I can just make a call on the public, the thing you can do to make a difference, and every one of us can make a difference, is to get involved with your neighborhood watch. And you don't have to be as fit as Ian to be on the forefront of fighting the criminals. You need various kind of people in these neighborhood watches. Of course, you need people on the operational side to tackle these issues on a grassroots level, but you also need people with regard to support services. And what we've seen, if you take your dog for a walk in the morning, that is actually a patrol, and people don't see it as that. But you are the eyes of the community to look what is happening, and you just need to be within a structure to be able to report what you are seeing. And we've seen now development. Afriforum is working with, and Ian would know that when he was there, we are working with a neighborhood watch within the Soweto community, where that has to develop. But of course, there's a lot of work still to be done. And that is this is a very negative situation, but I think one of the positive things that have come to the fore is that I think people have now seen that we need to be organized. And hopefully this will give some momentum to our efforts to make sure that our neighborhood watches are stronger. But even, this is not about an organization to say, join an Afriforum neighborhood watch. There are literally hundreds of other neighborhood watches that are not part of Afriforum, but that are doing a great job. So my call would be to people watching to say, you know what, get involved with a neighborhood watch. It doesn't matter if it's Afriforum or not, but we need to make sure that we are organized. And the best way to tackle this is to be organized. And we've seen it over the past few days. Those communities that were able to organize people are those communities that are safe.
Sihle, you muted.
Sihle, come back to us.
All right, I'm back. But Ian, let me come to you, because I think this is that rightly so. Kallie pointed out, this is an area which you really are a leading voice in, and I think more communities around the country need to start organizing. And again, I agree 100% with Kallie. It isn't just an Afriforum thing because I know it's going to happen even in the comment section. There they go again. Those right-wing Afrikaners, of course they will organize because they have all the guns, they'll say. And I've always asked people, sorry guys, I want to rant for a second here. I've always asked people, if you're clearly watching organizations like Afriforum, organize communities and literally get results, because that's what matters to me. I don't care if just organizing for the sake of organizing, but getting results. Why don't you emulate the behavior? If you know the formula is to unite, a unity of purpose, organizing those people who you've literally rallied around you, and then mobilizing them to achieve results for your community, why don't you emulate that behavior? Why don't we have this in Mlazi, my township where I'm from? Soweto, Philippi here in Cape Town. I'm currently in Cape Town. Why are we not literally learning from those who are doing and replicating that behavior? Instead, people will be more happy just to bitch and moan and to complain. And Ian, this is why I want to come to you, because the lesson I think we learned in this entire chaos is that the firearm is actually critically important. It's a critically important tool in allowing those communities who do organize to actually be able to stand their ground. In fact, this week, as those ructions were happening, I took a friend of mine to City Guns here in Cape Town to begin the process of applying for his firearms license for self-defense. And even as I say that, I want to put a question to you that has come through from the audience, because it comes to a point that I made also, that don't fool yourself. We're in a current lull at the moment. There's a little bit of peace, in inverted commas, at the moment. But the conditions that led to what we saw, the violence, the public, the looting, the wanton destruction are still there. Whether you believe this was incited by the Zoomers and the Zoomer Inc., as I like to call them, which was the one argument I made on the show, or this was just criminality, pure looting by people who are frustrated by the poverty, poor policy, and of course lockdown, which is the other argument we heard in the mainstream media. And of course the third one, which is this is supposedly a Zoomer coup attempt, or in real terms, definitionally speaking at least, an insurrection, or rather seditious acts. Whichever those three, and I argued all three could be, multiple things could be true at once. What we know is that this lull that we're in at the moment shouldn't dribble us into thinking we shouldn't prepare and we shouldn't arm up.
Yeah, so I actually want to stick to first just comment on what you and Kallie said. When it
Sure.
comes to the Afriforum side, I want to comment on your rant. Whether it's government or someone else commenting and saying the nonsense that you referred to or quoted, I don't see many other organizations going into Lavender Hill and going into Soweto or going into rural areas, taxi associations, and training people within the framework of the law free of charge to show them what they can and can't do to defend themselves in the community. So that's just the first point that's very, very important for people to notice. If we then carry on to, and it's also a comment to what Kallie said. Kallie spoke about normal people. I think the perception is very often that you need to be some form of a G.I. Joe or part of Zuma's KGB or something to be able to defend a community. And that's simply not true. You can be a pensioner that is not necessarily very fit, but is good at gossip in the community, and you take note of what's happening, and you like sitting on your little stoop, checking out the people walking past, that type of thing. It can play a crucial communication role in the community, and if you channel that energy correctly, it can have a huge impact, and whether it's with a focus on something like gender-based violence, where you take an organization like Action Society, or you go in rural areas where Afriforum have done a lot in terms of community safety structures and obviously communication networks especially, or you go to SA United Against Crime in parts of Soweto. You can really do a lot with people you wouldn't necessarily expect that could often, really bear the brunt. In terms of the armed community, I would really, really like to applaud the South African firearms community tonight, because damn, they did a massive, massive job in the past week. I would want to go as far as saying that, for people that supposedly are just civilians with firearms, I was astounded about how professionally they maintained themselves, how they did their jobs, and how they kept the momentum going. Because if it wasn't for armed community members in the past few weeks, I can guarantee you the damage we would have seen would have been far worse. I mean, I was involved in a few sessions where we literally had to get a few guys together with gun dealerships and have ammo transported down to other gun dealerships in order for people to get ammunition, because all the routes were closed because government couldn't keep them open, and people literally ran out of ammo. The important part to mention wasn't because community members were shooting at others. They were giving all their ammo to the police. Security companies were giving all their ammo to the police too. I mean, the amount of rubber rounds, there are parts of South Africa that literally ran out of rubber shotgun rounds, rubber cartridges in the past week. It's shocking. And the majority of that ammo was given straight to the police. So So, you know, if anyone tries to tell you that community structures need to stand back or that type of thing, they're talking absolute nonsense. Armed, well-trained, law-abiding citizens that organize themselves in neighborhood watches, farm watches, that type of thing, are worth so much. And we need to salute those people for the amazing work that they do, because, you know, I looked at places like Mitchell's Plain, for example, in last week, and I know there was no looting there. But guys, I don't know if you've spent an evening on Mitchell's Plain or in that area. It's not a nice place to be at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. It's really not a lekker place. It's like that Nelson Mandela Bridge, you know, that you mentioned earlier. And it's really not a nice area. And, you know, I see these communities literally standing guard, most of them without any firearms. And just that spirit that they have has a huge impact. So I would like to just take everything together from what I just said. Normal people have a huge impact. And if you've got communities organizing and mobilizing themselves, they can stop serious and violent crime quite a bit, and they can really give a pushback. I think what happened in the last week gave us a very, very good opportunity to just show, and we didn't actually need to campaign about it because it happened naturally, to just show how ridiculous the Firearm Amendment Bill is, and that it has no space in our society. Government has failed. The police have failed. And we know we have good cops on the ground. I know that there are thousands of them, and I want to support them. And yes,
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we are on our own. Police take more than 20 minutes in urban areas to just react to a crime. I'm not even talking about rural areas. So it just goes to show we are on our own, and we need to organize and mobilize. And I would like to, with Kallie as well, encourage people to get involved in your local safety structure. If you don't do that, you've only got yourself to blame, because the more people join, the more we will start influencing the ridiculous narrative that government should have the monopoly on your safety.
Absolutely. Gabriel, I'm going to come to you. Just before I do, guys, we're in the last 20 minutes of the show. You're watching Liberty and Friends. Please smash that like button. Great viewership numbers tonight, and the engagement is exactly where I need it to be. Thank you for that. Please hit that like button. This is Liberty and Friends. Gabriel, as we maybe taper off the conversation, and I know tonight was dominated by this issue, because really it was the dominant issue in the news cycle this week. I know there are other issues. People can find that on the Daily Friend. You guys keep an eye, of course, on all news issues. But, you know, maybe as we begin to wrap up this conversation, you know, I don't know what else to say. I'm in the presence of some really brilliant people here. You guys are really brilliant South Africans. And I talk a lot about us being the sort of South Africans who make up the real, everyday South Africa, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South Africa. And I made it quite explicit this week. You know, I talk a lot about this, Gabriel. This notion that, you know, stop waiting on government. If you are a Black chap who lives in a shack on a sand dune here in Cape Town, stop waiting and thinking government will save you. Unite with your fellow residents, organize yourselves, mobilize to achieve the ends that you're looking for. If you are a white South African somewhere in South Africa, an Indian South African who've come under attack in this country by certain politicians and, of course, the mainstream media, and, of course, the colored community, don't be dismayed. Don't be dismayed. The real power in who we are as South Africans come when we actually organize each other and we do what we need to do for our families and, of course, in defense of life, liberty, and property rights. So maybe as we taper off the conversation, talk to me about what we need to do going forward and how, of course, the Institute of Race Relations, what role it will be playing. Because, again, this is about defending our life, our liberty, and our property rights. You're muted. Just as you are muted, just before you go on, I also want to raise one more thing. You know, those who watch the show, I've been talking a lot about the idea that I want to literally traverse the country to push this notion, to push it into communities across the country, to bring in organizations like Afriforum, IRR, guys who are doing this excellent work under this banner of the Mazakele campaign, Mazakele being a Zulu word for build it yourself, because clearly that's what's now needed. South Africans actually saying, you know what, I'll wait for nobody, I will take charge and build it myself.
Amen. A bloody man. It's exactly the thing to do. I want to touch on one sort of focus point and then zoom out again. The focus point itself is kind of abstract in a way. It's just thinking about culture. It's an abstract concept. It's a social construct. It's something that means lots of different things to lots of different people. But it is a word that we've been hearing about, and I think it's important to note that there is a culture of violence. There's a sense in which culture just means that which is normalized, that which is encouraged by politicians, by media houses that have a sort of vested interest in perpetuating an anachronistic narrative. Is this culture of violence in the name of sadism, of an inhuman appetite for destruction, violence in the name of a revolution that brings about a utopia. And a very concrete expression of this was given to me by in a debate I did on Newsroom Africa yesterday with Professor Sipho Seele. I'm Big Daddy's gone, but I'm assuming that we're still live, so I'm going to keep answering the question. There he comes back. Are we good?
Yeah,
Okay.
keep going. Sorry, I took myself off screen because I'm working on something in the background. But go ahead.
Okay.
Gabriel.
So Professor Sipho Seele, who's the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of Zululand, he said we have to talk about culture right now, and we have to talk about the culture of violence that is in this fashion of violence for the purpose of taking from others. And he saw the unions as bearing a bit of responsibility for what we've seen in the last week in a way that I haven't heard anyone else raise. And so I just want to echo that and raise that today. When I talk about 10 violent protests per day, according to SAP's data, preceding the pandemic and preceding this sort of instantaneous outburst that we're living through now, a lot of that is driven by unions. Unions are a kind of fake community organization where you really just have a few vested interests terrorizing members and terrorizing owners, terrorizing communities in order to eke out a narrow economic gain just for themselves. And the means that have been allowed and tolerated at a media level, at a kind of social level, definitely at a police level and a rule of law level, has been a tolerance of burning down businesses, of kidnapping business owners, of basically taking people for ransom. And it's been a deadly business. It's been a destructive business. And it's something that I think is worth bearing in mind, because there's this ugly sense of culture that should be distinguished. Those cultures that have been destructive, that have been doing this kind of thing, when culture in the sense of culture of violence, culture is in the sense of entitlement that unions use to destroy businesses. There's a very different thing when you talk about culture in the old-fashioned sense. The old-fashioned sense where Zulu culture is a thing, where Afrikaans culture is a thing, where even South African culture for a long time has been espoused as an aspirational culture across race groups. I think those old cultures, and definitely the ancient cultures of religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, we've seen a lot of those voices shine through too in this last week. And for good reason. The old cultures in this country are a source of value. They're a source of normative power. They're a source of moral authority. And they hit that intellectual pragmatism that I was talking about, thinking about the rules that we need to live by. The rules of all the old religions have it that a person is a person on the basis of some uniqueness that doesn't break down across like racial groups or anything stupid like that. And the cultures of ritual and rites, ceremonies, food, cuisine, they have a beautiful kind of productive quality to them and a disciplined quality in terms of how they entrench good values, especially in young men. So I seek at a kind of strange level to try and spare us from this mistake of thinking that when you see communities get together, and race baiters come out and say, this is just Indians, or this is just Muslims, or this is just Christians, or this is just Zulus doing it, that you see through the lie there, that particularly according to an old socialist formula, the idea that protecting yourself and your family and your stuff is itself an immoral act. This is the cornerstone of Marxist thinking. And that has produced this habit, this ideological habit of projecting onto all actual cultures, because all actual ancient cultures do exactly that. They respect exactly those good values. And this Marxist idea is to project onto that a reflection of what the Marxists are actually doing, which is to introduce a new culture of burning and looting places that sell medicine, places that sell bread, disrupting roads that are trying to get people to job opportunities. It's a mad thing to do, but it has become normalized in this country in a kind of way. It is a culture. Marxism is a culture. And that is a culture that we must push up against. And in that regard, I think that the multiplicity and diversity of South Africa is a wonderful thing, because there are so many points of view from which you can push back against this. There are so many cultures in this country that stand against that. So I do hope that we have I'm seeing a cultural rejuvenation. I'm seeing people be proud to stand with their neighborhoods, to stand for traditions, to stand for what's good and right. And I think that's wonderful. I think that what we have to be careful of are any attempts to take those ancient wisdoms and corrupt them, short-winded, short-termist, narrow, self-interested wins. We have to be disciplined. And so far, I've seen some discipline. If this thing renews, and we have had some warnings that it's going to come back and it's going to be worse next week, I think that's not the most likely scenario, but I do think the most likely scenario is different. Violence doesn't go away in South Africa. Unemployment doesn't go away. Fundamental problems don't go away. We have more to deal with. And as long as we do, and as long as we have the leadership we have, people are going to try and deflect away from the cultural values, practically and ideologically, that have protected South Africans' life, liberty, and property, and turn those into the bogeyman, turn those into the villains, turn those into the scapegoats, and try and push against that in order to keep the status quo. The status quo can't be sustained, and I think that it's going to take a really diverse chorus to change that. It's a moment to embrace our diversity, I suppose, is my underlining point. The diverse nature of South Africans pushing against this, religiously, racially, culturally, on every level that value can be sourced, we've seen a pushback, and that has to be maintained at an intelligent and disciplined level. For years, it's going to take years to really put this fire out. My last comment, Sihle, because we probably are winding up, is that in terms of the thing I started with, how do we name this? What is the name of this incident of this last week? I think the best name probably is this: the fire that cannot be extinguished as long as our current leaders and our current laws stay in power. It's not the catchiest title, but that is what it is. This fire is going to simmer down, but it's going to keep burning as long as we don't make some fundamental changes. That's my perspective, and I think it's going to take a lot to make that change happen.
Absolutely. And that is Gabriel Crouse, of course. And, even as I say this, Nzuzo, let me come to you. Maybe as exactly that, a final word from you. I'm just doing final word, guys, because we're running out of time. Nzuzo, where to from here? Because you're probably seeing, as I put up on the screen, there have been voice notes going around saying, "Hey guys, there's hymns. What's hymns in English? There's rumors that this thing is going to come. It's coming back tomorrow. There's a certain family that was cited in Durban that is allegedly a big taxi earnings family who will be helping bus the insurrectionists, in inverted commas, or the looters around for round 2 of this nonsense. In fact, this particular family I'm referencing themselves came out and said this is absolute bullcrap. They have no intention of doing any of this. It's libelous. And they've actually appointed a private investigator to find out who's spreading this misinformation, because this week has been characterized by that, isn't it? Instigators trying to push this seditious type behavior. But where to from here, as a final word?
Well, firstly, I think with reference to the many rumors about what's going to happen in the next coming week, I think, communities must just arm themselves, prepare themselves, be on the ground, talk to each other, your residents, ensure that everyone is safe. And also, I'm grateful for the fact that, the school children are at home. Schools are not open. Kids are at home, and, they should stay at home. And actually, I think it's important that, communities really arm themselves and take care of themselves. Because as, everyone has said on the panel that, it's up to us now to protect ourselves. It's all that we have. We have each other and no one else. Government has obviously lost its way. Police is nowhere to be found. It's lack of resources. So it's up to us. I think that's the most important thing. All the communities from Soweto to Kwamashu to Lavender Hill, wherever they are, all communities might come together and work together to protect their property, their lives, and their families. I think that's the most important thing within the immediate future. Another thing is obviously get out there to vote. Of course, we know now that the ANC, the current government, has to be kicked out of government. They are useless. They support and propagate a very destructive culture, as Gabriel has said, which is Marxism, touched with a bit of communism and some socialism in there as well. So I think that it's best if we take this government out, and whoever you want to vote for, I'm not obviously gonna try and tell you to vote for this party or this party, even if it's some small party, in Eastern Cape, whatever it is. But like, those are the only. I'm pretty sure you're voting for that person, for those parties, because they actually promote the same values that you deem to be important. So I think that's the most important thing. Another thing is to vote the ANC and use the power of the vote. I understand that a lot of people, particularly young people, when I speak to them this week, when I told them that we're only our vote is the most powerful thing within the next coming months. But like Gabriel said, it's an everyday thing, democracy. But nonetheless, you have to get out there. And many of the youth were like, but why? Well, what's going to change? Who am I going to vote for? Or, what are they going to do for me? I need a job. I need a house. I need an income. And I'm just like, you're not going to get everything, but you're obviously going to get the ANC out. That's the most important thing. Local government has been devastated by this governing party. I know of local governments that have been given 200 million, and in less than a week, it's gone. So it's just vouchers that are surrounding the coffers of local government, and we have to get them out of there. There are some officials who are good and trying to do exactly what they're supposed to do, which is to serve, and I respect them, and I really appreciate the hard work that they do. But ultimately, the political heads are just the worst. They vouchers. They only believe in serving their stomach and not serving the people. And it's up to us as youth, particularly youth. When I see scores of youth in the townships just sitting in the corner waiting, begging, doing whatever they can to just hustle. Some are not even on social accounts. Some people, I don't even know how they survive. This guy's been working for 5 to 10 years, and yet he's still here with a kid. So, just that determination to just each day, each passing day, you try and do whatever you can just to get something. That should spur you on into also going to the voting line and voting for someone who espouses the same values as you. But like I said, it's down to the community. It's down to us, South Africans. And another thing that also touched me a lot this week is that even South Africans from abroad were asking, like, are you guys fine? Are you guys good? What's happening? Everything's just crazy. Can you guys tell me, are you guys safe? Are you guys doing the necessary things to make sure that you guys are safe? What's happening in my country? And it also shows how much as weird and as confusing as South African society is to the outside world, we understand why people still love it. It's just got that thing. I don't know, like Shaudi Matsoneng says, he has that thing that thing that you can't really put your nail on, but like it's still something that burns, that South African spirit, that's something, that passion that you have for the rainbow colors. So yeah, and the people, most importantly, the people. And I think that's the thing. You know, a lot of people in South Africa appreciate the communities which they find because it's unique. You don't find this in other multiracial countries. You don't find this in America. You find something different because it's Africa, maybe. I know it's a different touch, but nonetheless, the point is that because we already know that we are all we got, and looking at history, we are the people that actually are the reason why many struggles and many battles and many times were dark. I mean, apartheid, colonialism, and all that stuff. It was people coming together, working together hand in hand to try and make a difference in their communities and try to make a difference in society. And espouse the South African view. Might not be a globalist view, but it's a South African view that we can still live together, even though we share different cultures, maybe sometimes different values. But at the end of the day, we appreciate each other and we're working together to make sure that at the end of the day, we are able to, work out another day. But like I said, we need to get the government out of here. We need to arm up and get together as communities. Also, within the league, we must, and another thing that must also be done is to those elitist people, the media, the big companies, those ones that are trying to work with government to impose these crazy regulations, the crazy critical race theories, these crazy ideas. Let's put them to the side, ignore those people. They're always going to be there. They're always going to try and fool you and dribble you, as you like to say, Sithe. But, it's up to us as South Africans to take that aside and use the very conservative values which we hold and we love, like Gabriel says, and let that direct us. Tradition, that's the beauty of tradition. We don't know what's before us, and we don't know the unknown, but yet we use what we've known what we've learned in the past to push us forward. So that's the most important thing. So I think just on that point, I think that South Africans, we're at a crossroad, and South Africans must decide: do I want my country to burn while I'm watching it, or I'm going to do something about it? Make those simple changes. Join your neighborhood watch, donate, try to buy as much goods for people who don't have. Try to help them. Your businesses, whatever you have, just keep. I know a lot of business owners here in the comment section that are just thinking about the next day, how I'm going to survive. Keep on going, man. It's the South African spirit. You got to keep on going. You got to push forward. You guys are the heart of our country. You make the country beautiful in that you push and you strengthen our economy and you help people who don't or might not have anything to push another day. So yeah.
Absolutely. And indeed, rightly and well put. Kallie, I'm going to come to you because again, there is something to be said. And, it's one thing to speak about, because sometimes in the comment section, I get a lot of, oh, there we go again, blah, blah, blah. We're just talking, no action. But you guys are at the forefront of that very action that is often sorely needed in this country. And again, I will say it, people should be joining Afriforum. And if you don't want to join Afriforum, for whatever your reasons are, then form your own Afriforum-esque organization that mobilizes people, that more importantly achieves results. Your final word, Kallie?
Yes, I want to thank Nzuzo for the statements he's made. I agree with them totally. I see somebody said on the message that he's the only one speaking sense. So I now have to try and make some kind of comeback and say something that also makes sense to the viewer that mentioned that. No, definitely so. I think the fact is what we are doing at the moment, unfortunately, is people tend to look at the political elite and the statements they make, and also look at Twitter. And if you look at those things, you would think we are on the brink of a civil war. But what we should remember is that the vast majority of people want a stable society. They want a future for their children. And if you look, for instance, at the World Values Survey, it says that 80% of South Africans have a lot of things in common in terms of conservative values and the way they see the world. So that gives us a a very strong platform to work from to say, let's do something practical. We can have a lot of debates, but if you're going to say, you know what, we want to make sure that our communities are safe, we want to make sure that we take control and do a lot of things to better our community. And, you know, we don't have to ask for permission from government to do something. If we are going to wait for government to better our lives, you know, we are going to wait a very long time. So that is Afriforum's approach, is to say, let's make a difference, let's start tackling issues. And, you know, we've, in terms of our outreach to various cultural communities, we have never, ever had a single community to say they are not willing to work with Afriforum. So there's this idea of people that don't want to cooperate in this country, but we have many, many projects where people from different cultural backgrounds say, we want to make a difference. And we've seen it in Elliot with regard to the Taxi Association, cooperating with Afriforum in terms of the community safety projects. We actually see it all over the country. In terms of the colored community in the Western Cape, there's a lot of cooperation. So, as I've said, the past week was a terrible week in terms of what has happened, but there's always a silver lining, and the silver lining, it has showed us that communities are willing to take their future into their own hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, you're spot on. And I want to speak to that particular point just to end the show. Let's call it an announcement that I'll be making. But Ian, let me come to you. Final word, brother. South Africans, what do we do now? As we head forward, you know, you saw a lot of the messages I put on screen. You know, there's that a lot of the rumor mill is going crazy around. Oh, tomorrow there'll be more of this violence. A certain family will help and XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But if we just mute the noise for a moment and focus on what we as South Africans are meant to do, what is that?
Okay, so I think there are about 5 or 6 easy steps. The first one is you need to be a law-abiding citizen. The second one is arm yourself. The third one is get trained or get some form of training. The fourth one is join a communication network. The fifth one is get out on the street, and the sixth one is to repeat all of that. And I think if people do that, they can make a huge impact. In summary, or in conclusion, it's simple. If you can defend yourself, you can defend your family. If you can defend your family, you can help to defend your neighbors. And when neighbors can defend each other, they can safeguard a whole community. And I think that's the approach we're going for. Don't I'm seeing messages about the new world order and things. Look, there's some things that you might not be able to influence directly. So pick the battles you can win, and get involved with the things you really can influence on ground level. And I think that's an easy start.
Absolutely, absolutely. Succinctly put there by Ian Cameron, of course, who's at the head of firearms.co.za. Please make sure you check them out. And the one thing I wanted to say just to end off the show is exactly the point that was straddled by nearly all of the guests here. You know, I believe, and I've told you before, I've given up my life of my own creature comforts, a middle-class life, in order to live on the road, advocating for liberty ideas, advocating for the sort of ideas that can create a prosperous, property-owning, non-racial, free, and prosperous society. And key to that are these liberty ideas that I often talk about, and of course the campaign that I'm looking to take to the streets, to ordinary communities, whether rural, township, or suburban, is that idea of do it, or rather build it yourself. Mazakele, as the Zulu word is. It's a campaign that is already being, it's not new, it's not novel. I'm not the only person doing it, but I've always said it's building that groundswell of South Africans of like mind who will reach out to the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African in order to win them on the ideas, to then build the society that I often talk about. So the Mazakele campaign will literally be hitting the ground And I will be looking to organizations like Afriforum, the IRR, Solidariteit, and of course you, the ordinary person who watches the show, to support this initiative. Start investing in people who are defending this country, who want this country to succeed, and who want to build this nation and build this economy. This is the time. And sometimes it's pushing people to the point of crisis for them to see the importance of building an initiative like this one. So shout out to you, Kallie. I will be speaking to you guys in the course of the week, and hopefully we can actually build something that brings that momentum into the communities where even historically we haven't been before. So that's my commitment, that's my message, and I can see your thumbs up. Thank you very much. And with that being said, thank you to all my guests tonight. Guys, I really super appreciate it. And all of your information I will link in terms of how people can reach you, pardon me, I will link in the descriptor. Thank you so much. And with that being said, as I clear my wonderful guests, thank you for watching. This has been another episode of Liberty and Friends. Please, as you exit, make sure you share the stream and hit that like button if you haven't already. You guys are who make the show what it is. To those who are contributing to the show on a monthly basis, I do see you. Thank you so much. I'm going to do an episode this week where, as I did last week, I'll open up the lines to you guys and we can have that chat, and I'll use that episode as an opportunity to thank you, because it is your contributions, that are getting me across the country and meeting communities. Expect on the Big Daddy Liberty show, more community-based content where I'll be hitting the streets, talking to you, the ordinary South African, pardon me, and putting issues to you. So expect a lot of that old school Big Daddy Liberty to come back, where we hit the streets and talk to residents on numerous issues. And with that being said, thank you for watching, guys. Super appreciate that. This has been another episode of Liberty and Friends, and a reminder, as I always say at the end of every stream, that you should never trust a commie